spite of these numbers that should be so compelling, that are an imperative for us to act upon this. Every kind of avoidance of taking responsibility has been witnessed. Every chance that we had for testing, tracing, treatment, mask wearing, separation, sanitation, but science tells us to do, they have ignored. Their contempt for science and their disdain for governance. Science says wear a mask. Governance says let's enforce that. Science, governance, that's not what they're about. That's not what they're about. And what that is they're engaged in an absurd circus right now, refusing to accept reality. The Republicans are shamefully proceeding without recognizing what our responsibility is and making it even harder to address the massive health, and economic crisis that we're facing. A delayed ascertainment of the major harm caused to the presidential transition is something of another subject. Right now, we are talking about addressing the crisis, the pandemic. If we do so scientifically, we will be able to open our economy, we'll be able to open our schools safely, we're able to do so in a way that recognizes the tragedy that has befallen us in our country because of the Republican denial of science and disdain for governance. So stop the circus and get to work on what really matters to the American people, their health and their economic security. With that, I'm pleased to yield to the distinguished Democratic leader of the Senate, Mr. Schumer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's good to be back. Now, good morning. This is a moment of great national challenge. COVID-19 is surging. Small businesses are shuttering. Families are struggling. People continue to lose jobs and not gain new ones. We just had a divisive and hard-fought presidential election. But instead of working to pull the country back together so that we can fight our common enemy, COVID-19, Republicans in Congress are spreading conspiracy theories, denying reality, and poisoning the well of our democracy. The Republicans should stop their shenanigans about an election that President Trump has already lost and focus their attention on the immediate issue at hand, providing relief to a country living through the COVID health and economic crises. When it comes to the election, Republicans, congressional Republicans, don't have the evidence. They don't have the proof. They don't have anything. Neither does the president. Congressional Republicans are deliberately casting doubt on our elections for no other reason but fear of Donald Trump. These Republicans are all auditioning for profiles in cowardice. So this morning I have a very simple message for Senate Republicans. The election is over. It wasn't close. President Trump lost. Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States. Kamala Harris will be the next vice president of the United States. Senate Republicans, stop denying reality. Stop deliberately and recklessly sowing doubt about our democratic process and start focusing on COVID. The Republican refusal to deal with reality is hurting our country in many ways, fighting the health crisis of COVID, improving our economy, and not compromising on national security. It's time to move on and get to work for the American people. And I want to be very clear with the American people. The election's not in doubt. This is nothing more than a temper tantrum by Republicans, nothing more than a pathetic political performance for an audience of one, President Donald John Trump. This is nothing, Republicans, like the 2000 election, when the presidential election came down to one state and the difference between candidates was only 537 votes. Joe Biden's victory in the Electoral College has been secured by several states where tens of thousands of votes separate the candidates. Joe Biden leads in Wisconsin by 20,000, Pennsylvania 50,000, Michigan 146,000. That's the facts. Biden's won. Nothing Republicans or Trump can do will change that. All over the country, legal claims by the president and his Republican allies are being laughed out of court. The New York Times called election officials from both parties in every state in the country. Not one, reported any evidence of fraud or irregularities. These frivolous lawsuits have less than a snowball's chance in hell of succeeding. So let me speak directly to my Republican colleagues in the Senate. Once again, Joe Biden has won. Now move on and work with us to solve the COVID crisis. Let us bring the country together and get things done. Every day, as the Speaker mentioned, hundreds of thousands are getting sick. Thousands are dying. We don't have time for these kinds of games. The American people are waiting for relief from the COVID virus, but Republicans refuse to take comprehensive action that meets the needs of the country. The HEROES Act, passed in the House, does meet this moment. It doesn't pick and choose who we're going to help during the greatest health and economic crises in decades. It's laser focused on health care issues that are at the heart of this pandemic. The HEROES Act does something that's vital. It strengthens Medicaid and improves access to health care coverage, support for hospitals. At a time when COVID is raging, health care money, Medicaid expansion should be at the very top of the list. These are the issues we should be discussing and debating, and the HEROES Act should be the starting point, not an emaciated bill that prioritizes protections for corporations and considers the needs of American families as an afterthought. Every day that goes by without the Republican Party acknowledging and accepting the results of this election is another day Americans' faith in their wonderful democracy declines. The longer Senate Republicans play the sad game is the longer they are denying working families much-needed relief from the COVID health and economic crises. Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Leader. Yes, indeed, the HEROES Act has now for nearly 6 months been a formula for crushing the virus, for honoring our heroes, our healthcare workers, our police and fire, our first responders, our teachers, our sanitation, transportation, food workers, people who make our economy and our society work. As I said earlier, over 1 million teachers have already lost their jobs since last year. We need to help our state and local government. They say from time to time that they want to do that, but we haven't seen that evidence. Secondly, and this is almost sinful, crushing the virus is essential. At the time of a pandemic, instead of crushing the virus, they want to crush the Affordable Care Act, as was demonstrated in the Supreme Court the other day. And a very important point, among many others, that the leader made about the expansion of Medicaid. Many seniors, this is a middle-income benefit, middle-income family benefit. Many seniors who are in long-term care, well, 70% of that long-term care is covered by Medicaid. So yes, it is for poor children and poor families, but an overwhelming amount of it goes to help middle-class families have long-term care for their seniors. Again, part of the Affordable Care Act that not fully implemented by some states, but again, under siege in the court for the central issue of it, access to affordable health care, preventive care, and protecting the pre-existing condition benefit, which will go right down the drain with the president's case in the court. So it's hard to What are they thinking? Or am I using the word thinking loosely? People are suffering. Even before the coronavirus, the Affordable Care Act was essential, not just to the people who got the 20 million more people, and that's a blessing, but the 150 million families who have private health care, health insurance through their employment, and who have increased benefits in the bill, as well as the Medicaid expansion, so important. And the list goes on and on. I won't go through all of the benefits except to say that over 75 million people voted their health. Protect the Affordable Care Act, crush the virus so that we can open up our economy in a healthy way. And it's all doable. Let me just name it on a hopeful note. The news of the viruses, at least one virus and perhaps another right on the heels, coming out that are very promising and with high levels of protection, should give people motivation to do what is necessary, to self-quarantine, to wear masks, etc., because it will only take a short period of time with many more people doing that to reduce the incidence of the virus right as we go into the path of a vaccine. So again, we should be hopeful, but we have to be careful, and we have to honor the science, whether it's about how we embrace a vaccine. The vaccine will be, the more it is embraced, the more effective it will be. And the more effective it will be, we need more of it, and call upon the President to use the Defense Production Act to make sure that enough is produced so that everybody is cared for, because unless we're all protected, and that means in the world, not just in our country, none of us is protected. So on the health issue, it's just they seem to have a mental block to doing the right thing, a moral block for respecting what it's doing to America's families. I'll close with Martin Luther King, who said, of all of the inequalities, the inequality of access to health care is the most inhuman, because people will die. Any questions on this subject? We're sticking with this subject today. Tomorrow I'll have my weekly, and we can go into other things.
Madam Speaker?
Yes, sir.
Is it fair to say your position on the coronavirus relief has not changed since where it was before the election? Is that a fair characterization?
See,
your position on where
relief,
you are in
relief.
Coronavirus, has that not changed since before the election? Is that
It
fair?
has been our position all along to crush the virus, honor our heroes, put money in the pockets of the American people. But you have the administration saying, well, we have just made a light touch on their language on testing. No, 55% of the language, which addressed what we were trying to do for people of communities of color. So, yeah, no, we're at that same place, even more so with the pandemic, because look at these numbers. Look at these numbers. Look at the predictions from the scientific community. You know, I've come before you over and over again. Some weeks ago with Frank Pallone saying, this is what we put in the HEROES Act to crush the virus. Why won't they do it? They were in their herd mentality, herd immunity mood then.
And I would just add
Please, go.
one more thing. One more thing. Given how COVID is raging, the number of hospitalizations, the number of deaths is increased. It makes the health care provisions in the HEROES Act even more important and more vital that they be included.
Good morning. Thank you both. That said, though, you both called for the passage of the HEROES Act. It doesn't seem like there's any more of a path to get to 60 votes in the Senate to get closer there. And by that same score here, it seems as though in the House, your position on the larger bill, you would have a weaker hand to play in the lame duck Congress. If that's not the case, tell me why it's not.
Well, I think that the most compelling argument of what I said earlier, 144,000 people yesterday. And these people are spread all over the country. The pressure on hospitals all over the country, including in rural areas. So if the Republicans want to be cold-hearted and say they don't care, or as the president's son said, 225,000, I think at that time, that's no big number kind of thing. No, every single one of those deaths is important to us. We carry those people in our hearts. And they should be carrying them on their conscience for what they did not do. Since we passed the bill, the HEROES Act, over 100,000 more people have died. That could have been prevented. So, again, you've heard me say it a million times, Chad, public sentiment is everything. And now that the people have expressed their views, Joe Biden has won. Kamala Harris will be the first woman vice president of the United States. So I said to them, if we didn't have masks last week, they could see us beaming with that success. What they have been proposing is very similar to what we have in the HEROES Act. And we just have to fight to make sure that if the Republicans decide that they don't care about the health and well-being, about Medicaid and what it means to people in their lives, that the public will know.
And I would just say one more thing, Ted, one more thing. First, McConnell is sticking to his emaciated bill, which he's tried twice and didn't get a Republican vote. That's sort of a non-starter. And then he said, because we have a vaccine, there's even less need for a bill. Vaccine makes greater need for a bill because it has to be distributed fairly and equitably, and there needs to be education that it's healthy and everything else. Second, the biggest change since Election Day is that Donald Trump, who was not for helping us in COVID and who was against the HEROES bill, has lost. That was an overwhelming referendum by the American people. So yes, we think there has been change. It should move things in our direction. We're willing to sit down and talk. They haven't wanted to talk. They seem to have stuck to their position.
Speaker, to be clear, you don't
say that what Joe Biden got in this election was a mandate to address the challenges that our country faces, as well as to have a positive initiative on how to grow the economy in a fair way. And in order to do that, we must address the COVID, the pandemic.
This election was maybe more a referendum on who can handle COVID well than anything else. The Donald Trump approach was repudiated. The Joe Biden approach was embraced. And that's why we think there's a better chance to get a bill in the lame duck if only the Republicans would stop embracing the ridiculous shenanigans that Trump is forcing them to do, that this, in the election, and focus on what people need.
What about Republicans? Speaker Pelosi, in 2000, Democrat Al Gore was allowed to press his legal challenge against George W. Bush in Florida for 37 days. Do you think the same type of patience should be afforded to President Trump in his legal challenges?
Let me in fact say what Dick Cheney said at the time. In 2000, the delayed ascertainment caused many difficulties. The Bush administration was outspoken about about what was happening in the country. And as the leader said, this is a completely different situation. We're talking about one state. VP Dick Cheney said on November 27th, we will pay a heavy price for delays in planning and assembly of the next administration. And I don't think this, the Biden having been the Vice President of the United States, the Chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, the Chairman of the Judiciary Committee, he knows the territory. So he's going to be just fine in the transition. He's going to be just fine in the transition. It's most unfortunate that the Republicans have decided that they will not respect the will of the people. And let me just say, it's like the house is burning down and they just refuse to throw water on it. But we are on a path now, the vaccines, which were coming out of the private sector, actually the Pfizer vaccine coming out of the private sector, show great promise. And that promise is to say all the more reason to wear a mask, self-isolate, quarantine, and let us work together to get this done. I can't. This is like a gift from God to come down and help cure this pandemic. Not cure, just prevent it from being spread, and with a vaccine to inoculate against it. And as we inoculate against the virus, We also should be inoculating against all the injustices that are contained in how it is being spread and the rest. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Not in that way. Welcome.
Although he didn't answer it, I wanted him to. No, I mean, not specific. I mean, I got a million follow-ups, but not specifically. Yes. Same place, even more so.
She didn't want to talk about that.
Oh, you know, that's not true. That was required report from last year. So they just thought it was very punctuated before. And had that sort of every 4 years. Because McCarthy really kind of
Well, I mean, nice job. So once they go through their nonsense and taken to the courts and we're doing recounts, they do the recounts, they count it down. Same thing. Yeah, they have no account. And then they'll leave. And then one of two things. Good chance of the city's going to run it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He won't make it, though. He'll either just be too old or the same strength.
Yeah.
But,
I like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. He'll say he'll take it run again. And by the time things hear from him, he's not going to make it. So, well, I don't think it'd be his trouble is the face. His trouble in his so, they're all on board with that. So, he'll do a lot of TV interviews and he has over $300 million debt.
Yeah.
So he has to sell off a lot of his business, private assets, personal assets. Yeah, or, I mean, that's one of the smallest things. So he has to do that. He'll probably
Yeah. Yeah.
he'll probably do rallies and get paid to get
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he'll be on TV constantly.
Yeah.
He'll be running conspiracy theory stuff again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, we'll do that because I think the one will probably do something. Well, if she doesn't, she's stupid. She should from a financial standpoint because she renegotiated the prenup for the men's office. And if she stays with him and he dies, she inherits all the debt. Or if she stays with him and he doesn't die, he pays off all his debts. And doesn't really end up with much money because he'll just have to sell off his business.
Yeah.
So it actually makes more sense to
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah. So, I mean, the smallest analysis about the lawsuits, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
All those lawsuits are just down. Like, he's not going to do that. When he finally leaves, he'll just walk out and just leave. He won't say anything.
No.
What? He'll walk out and leave, and he'll just keep saying that everything's fake.
Yeah.
The whole thing's fake.
Yeah.
And that's it.
What's the right-wing footage that they use?
No, it's cool.
Private?
Yeah. Like, navigating it is terrible. It's like,
I mean, that's
really
people,
gluttonous for punishment anyways. Yeah, it's really beta.
kind of like the
Yeah. With the crowd lines, yeah. That's what we're talking about. It'll either be decent or it'll be nothing.
Yeah.
Because if these things, there'll be like 10 crowd members, like 200 empty tickets. And we all in case of it. And, you know, yeah. I don't know. I've read a bunch of funny things on the right-wing version of Twitter, which is just, yeah, there's 3 different groups of right-wingers. How many actually turn out? Who knows?
Not a lot of copies in this area.
No.
Plus they can't come with guns.
Even though they say they will, but they don't understand that they can't.
But they did. That's not.
Oh, 100%.
Not necessarily going to the White House. They just talk at the stands or something. It's really silly.
Yeah. So yeah. I don't know. The biggest, it's not really so, almost from top ballot perspectives. Yeah, they're the most. So they're the ones who usually instigate all the problems.
Well, it's part of their rank progression in the process to pick fights.
That's true. Yeah. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. Election night, they're such a nuisance. They're
They're worse.
yeah. Well, they do the same thing in London, right? They do the same thing in London, right? No? Yeah. Yeah, they do that. Well, you want to go to Portland, it's even worse. 100 times worse. Portland is actually really overrun right now because the mayor basically just doesn't do anything about it. So they just go around smashing stuff, smashing businesses, busting everything, setting stuff on fire every day since the spring. Every fucking day. And yeah. That's right. Yeah. Well, the thing is that also is that like, they don't. These people.
Microphone test 1, 2, 3, Studio A, United States Capitol, in November.
They don't know anything about that stuff. All they do is just go, oh, this is nothing to do. Yeah. And what about explain it? Yeah. And if you look at, if you look at some of the arrests of these people, just look at the actions. They're just, they're dead. Yeah, you don't want to mess with them because they travel in packs. CIS? If you get one of them. Yeah, they do, yeah. So what they do is they shut umbrellas, they have lasers, and they play the streets for some reason. They use lasers, umbrellas.
If you're shooting users, if you see one, you give them away. It's not to, it can potentially cover the sensors on ours.
Yeah.
But the problem for you is it will go through the lens and into your eye.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes straight through the. Yeah. Shell's believe me.
What, Brett?
Gravy.
The narrative. What's that? Most people don't care about him, so it'll be a lot easier. Yeah, but the only thing I would say is Kevin, this guy, he's getting caught out because he's basically supporting the defection. But yeah, so they deliberately travel in packs because if you just get one person by themselves, then they get scared.
Yeah.
So they deliberately travel in packs. They wear motorcycle helmets. They look like they're also referred to as the Black Dwarf. Yes. Because they hold umbrellas and homemade shields.
Yeah.
And
Hey, how's it going?
sometimes they have weapons. They have homemade weapons, homemade bombs. That's been the police and homemade bombs. Some firearms, not many, but some. But when they're traveling in big groups, there's not like they do.
No, there was about 200 that night that
Yeah.
I was doing it, and I was like,
Yeah, well, they'll pull out their umbrellas and poke you.
yeah.
Yeah.
But then we were walking with them, and it was like,
Yeah. Just the laser thing. You want to make sure your eyes there.
yeah.
On the mirrorless cameras, it's not like that sound, so it's not too bad. They can shoot like live beam on everyone. Of course, the other problem is that they just go up to the cameras and try to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very serious problem.
They're not fantastic.
And because it's basically an excuse to get rid of speech.
Where would we start?
Where would we start? Anyway, because they're so disorganized.
Right, okay.
Not really. They're just. And the other thing is they come in from, they're not really, they say they're DC based, but they're not. They're coming from Maryland or Virginia.
Yeah.
They're rich, white kids.
Yeah.
Who think they're politically active.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of rich white kids have come from wealthy homes. Those drug addicts. Or both.
Yeah.
So. Well, usually dealing with them for years.
Just don't do what your DC boss does and try to assert your right that you can do it. Because I've been next to him and done that, and I looked at him and I said, dude, stop. You're going to get all of us on all of our things.
Yeah, you said so. And same with when they're so weird. So you kind of.
I was in Iraq. So
Yeah.
like,
You gotta, you just, when you confronted by.
No, we
Oh, we
tried
were
to
talking
do
about
the
that.
day, and then,
You're on WhatsApp.
thank
I
you
know
very
this
much.
one, yeah.
Thank you.
When you have 20 people,
Yeah.
you can do it. No matter how small and scrubby they are.
I appreciate the information.
No, yeah, no, I've had mine the whole time. Yeah.
You're doing what, sorry?
Yeah, no, but the other ones, I guess.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I want to ask the ones that you do technically have to be careful about it in DC.
Yeah.
Because it's technically illegal, but one is that.
Is that police plus one from?
I don't know, whatever. I do my
Yeah, no.
It's 10 and a half turns.
Yeah.
What is that? Check your phone. Your phone. It's my phone. So we're gonna just be like, like 40 traditional Australia, New Zealand world word, C word. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, they use it.
Yeah, could be bad. Those little children, everybody goes,
Oh, wonderful. Did I have anything else? Yeah, I didn't function.
it was nice. Although the best part was actually last week, and we had actually, we had them in the house. How old is your old?
I'm very well. I'm over at Nana's.
Oh, really?
Eat up sometime.
But it was good. I mean,
Maryland, Fort Washington.
had to have it.
Good track. Good track. A lot of elevated tee boxes, elevated greens.
Yeah, you're going to get her computer fixed. I mean, it's in where is it again?
Fort Washington. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not, it's private, but it's not a hoity-toity. It's like a player sport.
Yeah.
We got a lot of guys that came out of there that play on the .com tour and stuff like that. That got their amateur status back. And yep, yeah, we'll tee it up sometime. That's all right, bro. I'll meet you there. Oh. Where'd it go? So it's Prom Boys at noon at Freedom Plaza, but I wonder why the Eventbrite is down. It used to look like I just sent it to it.
Okay. Just send me this. Oh, that's good.
It's a weird headline. Guns not welcome. They're not allowed. It's illegal. You know what I mean? Welcome makes it seem voluntary.
Jim, you spent the entire week sitting on that riser.
5 days on a rising.
I saw that video of you playing with the cones.
Oh, yeah.
It's all kicking off. All this stuff with me going in. And it's like stuff.
Yeah.
It's like team carrying, team advisors and catching. With direction of communications resign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's some that come
Welcome back.
I guess we can.
I mean, this is a lot.
Yeah, this is a lot.
Usually there's like 3 of us.
I know.
And I see him coming in, so I'll just leave.
I mean, I don't care. You don't have to. Yeah, again, for him, but it's just one person who wants to show them other people.
I think it was important, but.
What is not important?
Back when I was in New Zealand, they were about to vote on the law about restricting who could buy property there.
Oh, yeah.
Did they pass that?
Yeah.
So that you can buy property, but you can't buy a house. You have to buy property and then build a house on it.
Okay, I can't stick around, so just rotate yourselves through, okay?
Ugh.
You got you here, and there's 4 other people out there. Give yourselves 5 or 10 minutes, and then let someone else come in, okay? Can you do that on yourselves, or do
I think you can manage it.
you manage it?
Jim, you're in charge. I'm in charge.
Should I text somebody every like 1-2 minutes and say move?
That works.
Get a text change
I
on?
always said that really a while, a lot annoying, like an alarm. Go off every 2 minutes.
2 minutes. There we go. We'll have we should get, oh, you know what we should get? We get lights on the podium, like the red, green, yellow lights, right? Red lights
Stick 'em right in the middle.
Yellow is like get ready to move, and green move.
That'd be
Yeah,
nice.
something like
Yeah,
that.
you can just get everybody shot collars.
Sack colors.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
I don't know, that's too much. Yeah, I like the lights.
Shock collar.
All right, thanks.
Just right here, grab it back.
Turn it up on for certain people, you know, need to.
Yeah.
Then Graham will be back there. Jeff's in the back. It's maxed out.
Get to. Oh, you getting all these stuff now? Your batteries and all?
Oh, yeah, I've had these.
Oh, okay.
Had these for a while.
NCKAY.
Yeah. I had to teach Tash how to use the remotes on these. They're using
Oh, God, how awkward.
Because at Delaware, Florida, set these up to shoot the riot, you know, in employment. And I tested this a couple of nights ago. As soon as a person walks into the frame, already in there, gets the right. So all you do is just take the photos of the plane. You don't use it for you see it live.
But does the connection die down or something like that? Because like, you know, the camera's maybe like hundreds of feet away.
You know? Yeah. Well, I tried it. So I tried it up here.
Yeah.
And I had it on a tripod.
Similar reaction. We're just like, oh god.
And I set it in 151 and walked in and walked past.
Used to work class when we were up there.
So you can connect the Wi-Fi with the Bluetooth.
Oh, okay.
One either option. And it didn't disconnect.
Can you do hardwired if you have the hardwired grip?
2 minutes.
That I'm not sure.
You want a couple of things?
Good morning, all. Yesterday, the country paused to recognize their nation's veterans. And on behalf of the entire Republican Conference, I want to express our heartfelt appreciation to every veteran who has served our country. Their commitment to service and the love of the country exemplifies the very best of America. They deserve leaders in Washington who will hold the line and do their part in protecting our individual liberties at home. That is why I could not be prouder of the House Republicans and those who will join us in the next Congress. It will be the most diverse class we have ever had. Many have already dubbed this year the year of the Republican woman, and it couldn't be truer from that statement. We are poised to have 29 House Republican women join our ranks, surpassing the previous record. Every Democrat incumbent who lost, either lost to a woman, minority, or a veteran Republican. Meanwhile, Democrats are set to have the slimmest Democrat majority since World War II. Pundits doubted us, polls were stacked against us, and I don't believe one person in this room believed we'd win one race. The Cook report said we'd lose 15-20. The majority leader, Steny Hoyer, said just days before the election that they would gain 15 seats and Republicans would lose them. Sherry Boustros, the head of the DCCC, I guess for a few days longer, poised that they would be double digits victories. Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, claimed that she was not only winning the majority, she was having 2 elections this November. That it would be such a large victory, she would guarantee the majority for the next election as well. They were all wrong. Not one Republican incumbent lost. Republicans won from Miami to New York to Minnesota to California. The only seat the Democrats won was an open seat. And then they claimed to have won a redistricting in North Carolina where Republicans didn't even run. I heard the Speaker call it a mandate. It was a mandate against socialism. It was a mandate against defunding the police. It was a mandate against wasting a majority that the Democrats have done for the last Congress. While the Democrats praised socialism and advocated to defund the police, our members made a commitment to America. That they would restore our way of life, rebuild our economy, and renew the American dream. We are eager and ready to show up to work, unlike the Democrats. Yesterday, Chairperson Lofgren signaled that the Democrats have infrastructure in place to ensure Democrats can continue to get paid for not showing up to work. Something Americans across this country don't have the privilege to do. Millions of Americans have already returned to work, and millions more want to return. If they are willing to show up in person, so can we. It can be done in a safe manner to minimize the risk for members, for staff, employees, and for you, the press. Just as we did with the proxy voting scheme, House Republicans will stand up and defend the Constitution, even if it gets in the way of the Democrats' boat vacations and road trips to rocket launches. We believe Congress is essential. We believe you just spent some millions of dollars saying you'll be the voice for all of you in your district. You should show up and be that voice. Just like in May when I put myself and Tom Cole and Rodney Davis gave a plan to open up the House safely with testing, which the Speaker denied us. The ability to have rooms separated and distance so we could have hearings in a safe manner. Even to this day, the Speaker has no plan of how to have the House safely open up. Our success is already threatening Democrats. Instead of planning to work with us, they are already plotting ways to silence the minority party's voice in Congress. As many of you know, they want to change the rules to the motion to recommit, the MTR, as many of you know it. It's the only way that a legislative body allows a minority just to have one amendment to a bill. It's the only way the minority party can use the influence to improve legislation and serve as their constituents' voice in D.C. We won't let them silence us. This election cycle has made one thing clear. The Republican Party is now the party of the American worker. That is the actual mandate that we had from the voters. We are going to fight them, push back against Democrats' radical policies, and we'll continue to put America first. With that, let's open up for questions. Yes, sir.
With regard to the election, Nancy Pelosi has, and Speaker Schumer, Leader Schumer has said basically that with all these lawsuits, that all it's doing is just jeopardizing the democracy of America.
Not at all. You've got a hand recount going in Georgia. Every recount needs to be finished. You got challenges inside courts. Every challenge needs to be heard. Regardless of who you support in this election, at the end of the day, we want America to be united. Regardless of how this outcome is, you want to be able to trust the election. If there was something that was wrong in this election, we do not want to repeat it for the future either. Just as we watched in the race in 2000, it carried out more than 37 days because there were court cases. They were heard. I think when you have more than 150 million Americans voting, let's make sure we get this right. Yes, ma'am.
Texas is a concern. Democrats had really pinned hopes on about 10 seats, I think. Can Republicans now say that Texas is red and going forward for the next few cycles? Or no?
Look, I think every place is going to be competitive in the future. This country is very divided. We watch in all these races. But the Democrats said they were going to flip Texas. The Cook report actually had it as a toss-up, I think, at the end. They believed they were going to win all these open seats. They believed they were going to defeat incumbents. They didn't. Not only in Texas, they did not defeat one Republican incumbent who ran for re-election. In the open seats, they only won one on the large number of all the open seats. In Texas, no, they didn't defeat one down there. And we, just like in every other state on this win, we're going to have some amazing women. Beth Van Dyne, who's going to add to the delegation of Texas and to the Republican Party. Yes.
You mentioned all these women, the Republicans, now 29 coming in, but how concerned are you about the Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Lauren Boeberts, who have talked about and supported QAnon in the past, creating controversy for your conference? I mean, Marjorie Taylor walked around.
Did Brett Hand give you this question?
No. Marjorie Taylor, she walked around with the Bible looking for Reps Tlaib and Omar, saying that they needed to swear in on the Bible and not the Quran. Like, how are you going to deal with it?
Look, our party is very diverse. You mentioned two people who are going to join our party, and both of them have denounced QAnon. So the only thing I would ask of you in a press, these are new members, give them an opportunity before you claim what you believe they have done and what they will do. I think it's fair for all. Yes?
Do you
feel that any of the legal efforts or the recounts will change the results in any single state or overturn anything related to the overall election?
Look, I focused heavily on the House races. I thought when I looked, I follow data numbers. I thought early on that Arizona, based upon the number of votes that were left out, could switch back to President Trump. Don't know if that's going to be the case. I see things narrow. Let me give you an example, I guess more on a micro level, because it's very difficult. Like I have in my own race, in my county, we have 2 congressional seats. They tell me there's approximately 150,016 votes left. They use the number 16, and it's approximate. But they can't tell me in which district they are. I just watched a race in New Jersey that the AP called, and probably called way too soon. Tom Kean is coming back up because in the manner of what we've had this election is different than others, okay? A lot of by vote mail. Some states have done it before, others have not. Some mailed it to everybody. So when they counted, some counted certain votes coming in, and it'd be disproportionate. Democrats more likely voted in the absentee portion, and Republicans overwhelmingly voted on Election Day. So each area doesn't count them the same. So in this case in New Jersey, they counted the votes based upon when they came in. So it looked like a member had a really high margin. So they call the vote. Now we're seeing it just trick down. So the new ones that are counting, Tom Kean's winning by 63%. So your answer to your question is one could. And it's best because everybody took the time to go vote. Let's wait till we have all the information. They're going to recount by hand in Georgia. That's going to take some time. That's a close race. We had a close race in the last presidential. Let's let all of them carry out, and yeah, some of them could switch. Yes, ma'am.
You added a record number of women to the conference, but obviously still a fraction of what Democrats have in terms of diversity.
You can't even give us that, can you? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What's your plan to continue to increase diversity in the conference?
Exactly what the plan I told you 2 years ago. That I believe the Republican Party is much more diverse than what reflects on the floor. And I think this election proved it. I think when you look at who ran, who represented the party, and where they represented it from, when you look at the results and the outcome, it's only in this room would we get a new record for the number of women, more diverse, and it only makes us stronger. That's what makes America strong. We're reflective upon that. Think about where we won. We won 2 seats in Miami. Maria Salazar, Carlos Jimenez. Maria defeated a congresswoman who was the former Secretary of the Health and Human Service, who called herself a pragmatic socialist. When I listened to the Democratic caucus on Twitter, they're all burning up. We're not socialists. They literally claimed to be, and they lost over it. We defeated a sitting chairman of a committee. Been here more than 30 years. The DCCC own chair had to put $1 million into her own race in the last week, and it was questioned on election night whether she was going to win. One day, you should at least let us have what took place that night. It was an unbelievable night for Republicans in Congress. Something that we told you about 2 years ago, that we would be more diverse exactly the way we look at it across the party. Those people had to run. They put their name on the line. Not only, if you take us from 2 years ago, only 44 women won the primary. This time, 94. More women ran as Republicans than any time in the history of the Republican Party. Before, the record was 143. 225 ran this time. So we're doing fabulous, and we're going to continue it. And what's going to happen with the success of the women, the success of the diversity, it's going to empower others to see, you can do it, I can do it too. Maybe I've been quiet about my beliefs in this party, but I know this party has a place for me, so they're going to join. Yes, sir.
I mean, talk about a little bit, two-part question. What do you want on COVID relief in the coming month? Because presumably you'll have some say. McConnell says he wants a targeted small package. I'm curious where you come out. And next Congress, you're going to have a pretty powerful minority. I'm curious how you think about that. In 2009, when you were in the minority, you guys didn't participate much with Obama. You argue he didn't participate with you. Let's not have that conversation. I'm just curious about your orientation going into next Congress if Biden's the president, which seems obvious to most people at this point.
The first thing I want to have happen, I want politics to end on the COVID. Now, you know, I've been in all the discussions with the leaders. I've never watched one leader play politics more than anything else than Nancy Pelosi. She played politics from the very first time we did the CARES Act. You watched her delay it a week. You watched her, and I've watched her time and again inside the meetings. She had one mission and one mission only. She was willing to sacrifice her own members. Remember what she said prior to departure when we were talking about COVID and the problem solvers had put a plan up. What'd she call the problem solvers? They're irrelevant. She knew her own members were going to lose, but her whole focus, her tunnel vision was, it didn't matter what the issue is, but if I can make President Trump weaker for an election, I'm going to do it. And what she did in that instance is she sacrificed our economy and people who were hurting. The election is now over, and I think it was very clear that she should end her politics about it. And we should be able to get into a room. We've got money sitting there. What did the Republicans do? We put on the floor 37 times to be able to vote for money for COVID, for PPP. There is more than $137 billion sitting there. It's only the date why you can't keep going out. She dispersed Congress because she was afraid I was going to do a motion to recommit. She changed how we voted to the floor on our continuing resolution, simply because she was afraid people would have got resources and help. So the number one thing that has to happen, the only thing that's standing in the way, in my view, is Speaker Pelosi. Yes, yes. And you know what? We have more information today. We've got more than $100 billion sitting there for states. This is money that's already appropriated. Why is it being held up? People need some relief, and we can provide it. That money, the PPP, goes to small businesses. It doesn't go to the owners. It goes to the employees. It pays the rent. It's every small city we know, a person who had a dream and took a risk and lets them stay around. That's all that has to get done. Now, working on the other side and thinking about the next Congress, I put a lot of thought into it. I'm first going to wait to see who holds up to become Speaker. As you know, I've been to those battles. They're not easy. It takes 218 on the floor. There were 15 Democrats who voted against the speakership of Nancy Pelosi last time. 10 of those 15 Democrats will be back. If 10 Democrats vote again against Nancy Pelosi, she will not be Speaker. You see, the numbers are different. It is the smallest Democrat majority since World War II. And from every reporting I'm seeing, or if I'm just reading Twitter, from their conference chair to Congresswoman AOC, it doesn't seem they're getting along very well. They're fighting on the fundamental of who they are, for what they championed and what they lost over. And they have the exact same leadership team that they lost last time with. I don't know in history, has there ever been a leadership team to lose the majority twice? Well, if they elect the same, we'll know for sure whether that will be in history.
Do you think that...
I always look forward to your question.
I appreciate that. I would ask you too. James Lankford and Chuck Grassley both say that Joe Biden should have access to classified briefings to prepare for the transition. Do you believe that Joe Biden should have access to classified intelligence briefings?
Only because I knew you were coming. I wanted to make sure what Joe Biden said too. You know, I'm part of the Gang of Eight. I do trust our intel community, and I want to make sure I continue to trust it. Joe Biden said, in regards to this, look, access to classified information is useful, but I'm not in a position to make any decisions on those issues anyway. So as I said, one president at a time. He will be president until January 20th. It would be nice to have it, but it's not critical. I think I kind of stand with Joe Biden. I'll trust the intel community. He's not president right now. Don't know if he'll be president January 20th, but whoever is, will get the information. Thank you all very much. Look forward to spending time with you. Great.
script again.
Dude, love it.
I got script again, man.
Just Kevin said give the QAnon people a chance.
MTG.
He did a fucking total victory.
MTG.
Dude, it's so funny you said the Timotina thing. I got the thing.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, Mike. Oh, yeah, no problem. Yeah, I was on. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I have to go back. I recorded the Q&A, so I'm going to go back.
The one thing is that the election is over and like all the we won, yeah, that's kind of weird.
Yeah,
That's
right.
kind of weird. That's kind of my headline. Well, you said that they lost it, and I was like,
No.
I missed that. No.
Because I looked this up last night. She said, oh, because it was like my mom. No, that was like a one thing. No, I don't want to do with that. Marjorie Taylor Greene spouted it big time, but she walked it back. And then, but she walked it back a little bit, but she didn't fully do it.
No, I don't think she walked it back.
Like a tiny bit, not fully. And then, or not fully though. And she.
Yes.
Remember,
You know
and then,
what?
The event just ended.
She did.
Oh,
watched the
did?
video last night.
Yeah.
She's
Oh,
walking through
okay.
the Bible looking for Talib. There's video of her walking through the hall.
Have you heard?
These are millennials, man.
Have you heard anything from the past?
What makes you think in 1,000
Somebody
years
like found it online.
Or like
that the desk would have reached out for anything?
Didn't say anything.
No.
You know more than I do about anything.
I watched it last night.
No. That's a good question, and the answer is no.
That's what I should have said.
Yeah, that would have been a better
Never
start.
gonna call me again after like Russian misinformation. This.
Right.
I'll see y'all later.
Bye.
You can have that framed.
The moment I switch.
Yep, right there.
Yeah, like,
It's a very powerful moment.
Lovely. Lovely. Hey, that's what I need. I need to love. Yeah, go on. Huh? If I decide no. As I said, I don't know if the police are going to do it or not. We got a couple things to work out. I'm through with that. I don't even know why you're talking about it. You're getting yourself in trouble. No. If the person is blind, what I see, what I do is Yeah, man. Should I see you afterwards? you end up going somewhere else and you help set up something. Yeah.
I highly doubt that's going to happen. I mean, an Alzheimer's session. Correct.
Come on. That's the whole, when I look at it like that, I'm like, how can they understand? They went Biden, and then they went to the House of Representatives, and they Republican all the way down to there. I don't find that even the slightest, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's where it makes it weird for me to believe that there wasn't some kind of problem in the president. You know? What's up? I mean, how does that work? Nobody votes like that. I like Biden, but I'm going to make all my Republicans mad. Sorry. I'm trying not to say anything. I'm trying, no news outlet will even speak of it. Makes me kind of sick. Maybe Trump is like something new. It is, right? Very strange. So anyway, enough of that politics. I'll see you guys. Next time. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. Yeah, just be ready for tomorrow.
You here tomorrow?
Yeah.
I'm here.
Bye-bye. Stay dry. Yeah, let me know if you need something. Yes, sir.
Hello.
Oh my goodness. How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Oh my God.
How are you?
Good.
Yeah?
Sorry, I had to take my shirt off.
Oh my gosh, I don't care.
It's wet.
I don't care. It's horrible out.
Oh my God. That's you. It's really you.
It's really me. Here in the flesh. Yep.
Wow. What have you been up to?
Not a lot, you know. I'm kind of crazy since the election, so. Were you in D.C. for the election?
Oh, yes.
Where were you?
I was in two different places. I was at the JW, and then they transferred me to the burial camp and KIS.
Gotcha. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was like 3 days. It was like living from one point to the other. But yeah, because I really lived for 3 days.
Yeah. I feel ya.
Yeah. And then I had just a few hours to go to sleep.
Yeah. I bet. Crazy couple of days.
Yeah, it was fun.
shot going out to the pool yet?
What's up?
Is the shot up on a TVU yet?
Oh, we're going to the board.
Oh, is the shot? Okay, that's,
Yeah, I just checked with Matt.
but it's going out.
It's going, yes.
Cool. Thank you.
I haven't got a reference though.
That's fine. I'm gonna call the NAC really quick and double check
Yeah,
the
I
shot's
don't know
going out.
Sync.
Hey, it's Allie King. Hello, I'm free, how are you? Oh no, from the rain? Oh, that's terrible. Oh my god, can't touch the brake. Just wanted to check in with you and see if the Part 216 Senate lunch takeout is going out to Cashier Fire. I will send out a note. Thanks. Thank you. Bye.
Alex? Are they gonna walk? What time?
Well, you know how this is, like, there's no way to know. 12:30 to 1 is my guess. But they'll come in and out, you know. They have a vote at right now, and then another one later. So 12:30 to 1 is my guess, but I don't know what you say.
Also the cars, my cars. I need to find the cars. Do you know about those?
Not really. That's more of a like Elda that question.
What were you doing last week?
What was last week? Was that the election?
Yeah.
Wow. I was on our ballot watch team, so tracking voting irregularities in Arizona and Colorado.
What? Wow.
That was fun, yeah. And then back up here when they came back, which I guess was Monday. Yeah, Trish is out this week, so it's been a little.
Oh, so Trish is
So we got the team staff, like there's folks working from home and helping me manage all this sound, but I'm the only like physical person up here right now, so it's a little crazy, but it's been fun.
Because I always think that you and Trish are like literally like all alone.
Trish is the best. She's getting some very seriously deserved time off, so that's good.
Because you're here all the time. Pretty much all the time, too.
Yeah. Are you going home for Thanksgiving? You're kind of from around here, right?
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Will you get to see family?
No. My dad is fine in his bedroom. And my sister looks like she gets kind of nervous when I'm around.
It's tough to make those calls.
My father is amazingly loving. My dad, my sister took her responsibility from my mom. So every time I go to my dad, even though my dad is far, she just bothers me.
It's hard.
Not calm.
I'm gonna drive back to Illinois.
Really? Oh, wait. Your mother.
My parents, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna drive back.
Wow.
So.
You will?
Mhm.
Oh my God.
One of my good friends that I met out here, her folks actually live like 20 minutes from mine.
Oh, sweet.
So she and I will go together. It should be good. I'm just like worried about getting on a plane and bringing COVID to them.
Oh, you know you're so relevant. That is so smart.
Like, I mean, I don't want to get it. I understand it's very serious no matter how old you are, but I'm not as concerned about getting it personally as I am about giving it to my parents who are like both in their 60s. So I'm like, can't.
You're so smart.
I mean, the fact that we're up here already makes us a lot more risky.
How is Illinois going to come up?
Not good. Not good. But I mean, I'm really like probably gonna spend most of my time like in my home, like in my parents' house. So.
So you're not renting. You're going to be with them.
Just for the week though, then I'll come back.
Wow. Did you test it?
I may get tested before I leave. Yeah. I need to maybe try to do that.
Just to make sure that you were like mentally okay for them.
Right. I think that's smart.
But if you've been okay for weeks and weeks.
Yeah, I mean it's hard because obviously like we can't quarantine like fully in the way that a lot of folks can. But after many months of this stayed out, I have determined that this hallway is the best place to stand. You can grab them and see them coming from both ways.
Right. Yes.
But otherwise what happens is the prick people stop them like right here.
I know it's true.
Whereas you're here, you can be like, let's walk over.
Walker had tested positive, right? No, that's not Walker. That's the North Carolina Republican
list a while back, yeah, but he's fine now.
What about the other one? Snow Walker, North Carolina, Congressman.
Oh, I'm,
Walker. It's not Mark Walker, it's Meadows.
Mark Meadows,
Mark Meadows.
the chief of staff, yeah, he's former, yes, okay,
He's
former
not
North
here.
Carolina. No, he's not here. Very rarely here.
Because their staff also tested positive.
espionage.
I want to know if you think Vice President Biden should be receiving security briefings and intel briefings.
Well, he always done that before, haven't we?
Yeah, but he's not getting them right now because the GSA hasn't certified the election. What do you,
Well, there you go. Well, you know, that'll come. But with the Vice President Biden, he's been through this before. And so I think he has, and he's, putting together his team. We'll see how this plays out. You just have to let it play out. Everybody's getting all wound up. I don't think that's really necessary because sooner or later it's going to be determined, and then we have to come together.
do you think it poses a security risk right now that he's not getting this information?
No. I think if we had a national security risk, why, of course, everybody would get briefings of the appropriate committees and so on and so forth. So I think we'll be all right.
And then Senator Sanders and Senator Warren, to some extent, have expressed some interest in serving on Vice President Biden's cabinet. Do you think they'd be a good fit in those roles?
That's up to Joe.
Thanks, Senator. Once it's already started, I've seen 2 senators go in. Only 2. Okay. They also sometimes come in through the back, so there could be. Oh, yeah, okay.
Senator, can I ask you a question for a quick sec?
What's going on?
I just wanted to think. Apparently, Bernie Sanders over at the camera. You mind about the camera?
What are you going to ask about? I don't know anything.
All right. Well, what would you? Do you think Bernie Sanders could get confirmed by the Senate? He said he was open to being in President Biden, a potential President Biden's cabinet.
Yeah, I expect he could.
Do you think that Vice President Biden should be getting security briefings?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, where are you exactly? If you want.
Jason, do you want to spoon the quote that Lonnie has?
I bet you he got him. I bet you he got him when it was the. I bet you it was when he got the. You know how he always speaks right after McConnell, like McConnell, Schumer, Jones, Durbin? I bet you it was that, because that's what people would have said.
I guess it's like that.
That's about the very quote?
Maybe he's obsessed with this body getting briefings through.
Senator Round, sorry.
You got to get all masked up, right?
Yeah, I had to. I had to blow my nose a little bit.
Which one did you do? The champion? Which one's yours?
Champions, the world champions.
Oh, okay. Well, that works.
Oh
here.
yeah, I got the lanyard too.
Oh, you did?
Oh, I'm up. It's the first time in 32 years.
You know, I always thought that this year was going to be a great year to just go on down and to see some games and so forth.
Yeah.
It's disappointing when you can't.
I mean,
do that.
and Senator Thune's a huge Dodgers fan too.
So, you know, I'm a Yankees fan.
Oh, right.
I'm a Yankees fan. So, you know.
So you guys split in the middle, half
oh, yeah.
the West and half the East.
But we're both Green Bay Packers fans.
Oh.
So, you know, got to have that kind of stuff.
Senator, can I ask you, would you mind stepping to the mic for a second? On a less fun
Depends
note.
on what your question is.
On a less fun note.
We got the ladies first.
Do you believe that Vice President Biden should be receiving security briefings?
I do think they're going to have to work that out in very short order. Look, one of these two men will be the President of the United States after the election results have come in. And I think at this point, just as a matter of protecting our nation's interests, I do think that both the President and his competition here, of Vice President Biden, should have access to those classified reports.
Is it a security risk if Biden isn't getting that kind of access right now?
I don't think it's a security risk right now, but I think should we need a transition in the future, this would simplify that transition and it would provide them with more information to make a smoother transition. We've got time yet, but I do think they're going to have to work out that specific issue in short order.
And Senator Sanders appeared to be open to serving in a potential President Biden administration in his cabinet. Do you think with the Republican majority in the Senate that he would be able to be confirmed?
I think it would be a challenge.
Why would you think it would be a challenge?
How long have you been in Washington, D.C.? Look, we want businesses to be able to thrive. We recognize the need for labor to be a part of those discussions. But once again, I think you need someone that can work with both sides on specific areas of issue. Personally, Bernie's a friend, but most certainly I think he's going to be significantly different in his opinion about what a labor secretary should do than a lot of the members in the United States Senate think is appropriate.
Thank you very
bet.
much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Go Dodgers, not the Yankees.
I'm no dog in this thing.
Yeah, that's true. We'll probably be there again, all right? Yep. Could be worse. Definitely could be.